All right, Santa Clarita, it is 1:03. I am not Doug Sutton, thank goodness. But you are listening to Gazette Radio Hour on AM-1220 KHTS, Santa Clarita's hometown station. It's all you need to know to be in the know. My name is John Rogers. We are here with a special guest. We've got Hans, a.k.a. Mr. Sports, Mr. Football. You're like a jack of all trades, aren't you?
I'm more of the ace, John.
The ace of all trades, yeah. The ace of something. Anyway, so Doug is not with us today, so he was off ranting, I'm sure. We'll probably have an update. We may have an update from Doug before the show's over, Hans. It's possible. If not, I'm sure there'll be some legal ramifications and perhaps a temporary restraining order against him for, who knows what he's doing. So, Hansi, how you doing, man?
I'm great. For those of you who don't know, I haven't been around in a while.
You haven't.
Believe it or not, I'm 2 weeks removed from heart surgery. So
seriously.
True.
Heart surgery.
Heart surgery. I was corrected a lot of the times. It wasn't surgery; it was a procedure. But
a procedure.
But it is.
You're too young to have a procedure.
I'm only 25.
I know, but aren't procedures like for really old people? All these Jewish moms and dads having procedures.
Me feel old, John.
They have procedures. I didn't have surgery. Is that a procedure? Send me a cheesecake. That was. I
didn't get cheesecake.
So okay, you didn't get it. Well, you can't now because you had. So okay, hearts. I'm still stunned at the heart procedure. Sorry.
Procedure.
So how did this come out? I mean,
well, I was down in San Diego at a fitness camp, and ultimately I had 2 ER visits, both times with a heart rate of 220 and 240.
Wow.
So, and that's abnormal.
But you're okay now.
I'm very well.
So if we get yelling and screaming and upset, you're not going to keel over, right?
Just you.
Okay, good. Whew. Just making sure, because I don't want to be responsible. I mean, could you sign this waiver? You did sign the waiver, right?
Yes.
Just okay, all right. Because there's a lot of stuff going on.
Wait a second, that was a waiver?
Yeah, you didn't read it? As your attorney, I advise you to read
usually
it.
just click accept and move on.
Oh, you got to read those things. All of them. Page after page after page, because it affects your rights. Yeah.
Interesting.
No, so, all right, so great. We can talk sports, right? You know what time of year it is.
I do have the madness.
It is March Madness, and being Arizona. We could talk Arizona and Maryland. Doug is not here.
We could talk. John, you could talk about.
I could talk Maryland. Maryland, a number 3 seed in the tournament, right? It's going to happen.
It'll happen.
It's
they got to get through Wisconsin first.
They got to get There's a lot of basketball.
There's a lot of ifs and buts, but
pro versus college. Is there anything better than college basketball this time of year? Yeah, exactly. No. There isn't. And how can you watch the pros? It's one millionaire clearing out for, or 4 or 5 millionaires clearing out for one other billionaire.
So you go from millionaire to billionaire.
Yeah, because the billionaire is taking the shots. Well, there's no defense.
Which would you rather be?
Well, yeah, but I'm not playing. But there's no shot. There's no defense.
So you're saying the best thing that could probably happen to the NBA would be the invention of the 4-point line?
No.
You got to come up with something there. You got to come up with something though.
There isn't. How about they play basketball? How about they stop ruining the game? But then again, it's a tough call because you have too much defense, then you have the college game.
Well, people are overthinking the NBA with the too much defense and flopping and stuff like that. But people aren't taking into consideration a lot of the more hot topics within the NBA right now. Like people are forgetting that there are 4 legit contenders for the MVP race, and this will probably be one of the closest races in the NBA's history.
All right, I got 2 of them. Who's the other 2?
LeBron James, Stephen Curry, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook, yeah.
He catapulted himself into the race.
He could be traded though. I mean, couldn't he be released?
I mean, he could.
Same with Durant.
There are theories out there that Durant and Westbrook could be separated.
Durant going to Washington?
To D.C. And I know you would be very satisfied with that.
Go Wizards. Ooh, never thought I'd say that.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say.
Stick to Terps.
It's hard for me to say that. Between that and, we could talk hockey too. Ooh. We could talk hockey. We could talk football. There's so many things to talk about. Now that Doug's here?
I think we have to wait for Kyle for that, for the hockey.
For the hockey? All right, but now that Doug is not here, it's like the inmates running the asylum. Or maybe the asylum running the inmate out. Maybe Doug was the inmate. Doug was the asylum.
I think you should recollect your thoughts there.
Yeah, let me think about that one. I think now that we can talk whatever we want to talk about. That's the best part. Wow. We don't have to listen to Doug rant and rave about Obama this, Obama that, Obama this, Obama that, or I wish he was back in when Reagan was president or anything along those lines. We don't have to listen to any of that stuff.
But you know what? Doug is my bear down partner in crime. So
yeah, you guys and your Arizona stuff, and we don't have to talk Dodgers if we don't want to. Although we can because they're not bad.
We will.
We could talk Dodgers. We could talk.
It is spring training, so Doug has to have some kind of influence in the show.
What's really nice is spring training for me usually starts, especially now that I'm living in California all these years. Spring training usually starts. It'll be warm in January, then there's a couple cold days, and then it's the first time it's warm after baseball season starts. Ooh. Then you're like, oh, I'm driving with the windows down. Oh, it's almost here. It's because the first month of baseball is fun, and then it just drags on.
So you're telling me I need to get a convertible?
Yes, as do I.
Okay.
But don't you think? It drags on. It's 110. I heard they were talking about. Been some rumors about shortening the season for baseball, which I think would be awesome.
Shortening the season, I think, would be a good thing. Per se, my dad, he always says that baseball's boring. They need to cut the length down. But
and your dad's old.
He's old.
I mean, that probably was an insult, but not meant to be an insult. But usually, what happens is the younger generations will say that. The millennials, your generation will say baseball's boring. We don't like to follow it.
Well, but you got to think. My generation's always been instant gratification. So we've always been sports. We love social media.
Yeah.
And
it's quick stuff. It's always, that's why the NBA is so popular. That's why the NFL is so popular. You've got Sunday of a smorgasbord, a feast, and then they're going to stretch it out into Monday, and then Tuesday. There'll be games.
Now we have Thursday games, and
What's next? But all right, so we got a big show planned. We got a lot of stuff going on, and I guess this is cool. I get to come in and go out all at the same time. We don't really need Doug.
Does Doug normally dominate that?
Yeah, Doug just talks a lot. He doesn't say a lot of important things. All right, you're listening to the Gazette Radio Hour with just John and Hans on AM-1220 KHTS, Santa Clarita's hometown station. We will be right back. All right, we're back. I was going to say you need to know, but I hate when Doug does that. You're listening to Gazette Radio Hour on AM-1220 KHTS, Santa Clarita's hometown station. Hey, it's John and Hans. Wow, it sounds like Hans and Hans.
That's got a weird ring to it.
I feel like I should pump you up. So, all right, you said something in the last break, or when we were talking, that got me thinking. There's something wrong with your generation. You guys seem to be all into sports and social media and self-gratification. And do you guys even think about issues and stuff going on in the world?
If you're asking if I read, John, yes, I read.
Wow, that really wasn't where I was going. But
I read.
So what about the situation in the Middle East and Russia and all that stuff? Are you guys aware of all this?
Yes, and I will say that Fox News is in my shortcuts.
Okay.
But, yes, and, I was able to watch Netanyahu's speech. I am familiar with what's going on in North Korea and South Korea.
Oh, awesome. All right, well, good, because we happen to have our expert on. We're going to bring him in and have him talk some sense into you, perhaps. Robert Patrick Lewis, author, ex-Green Beret, investment advisor, all-around great guy, part-time handyman, will come over and clean your gutters. Isn't that right, Robert?
Only for the right price. Everything for the right price.
Exactly. I was running out of things to call you. So, all right, you said, let's talk about the speech. Netanyahu. Did you see that?
I did. And actually, that was I wrestled for quite a while to the point where I missed my deadline trying to figure out if my article in the Gazette this week was going to be on Netanyahu's speech or net neutrality. Because it was. I thought it was a pretty powerful one.
It was. They compared it to Chamberlain and Churchill. And I was like, wow, that's obviously President Obama being, Neville Chamberlain and not being a real strong speaker and not being foresightful. I made that word enough to see World War II coming, where Churchill was like, no, never, not again, and rallied the troops. And I wonder whether that was what was going on.
I don't know. There's been a lot of comparisons made to that speech and what he was doing, where a lot of people are just saying he's a warmonger. I saw a lot of people, a lot of things on Facebook comparing him to Darth Vader, saying that, my plan to basically plunge the world back into World War III went over great. And then other people, a lot of other people say stand with Israel. And that's kind of the unfortunate thing is everything today is so highly politicized. And everything, everybody's got to be left or right. You got to be way far to the left or way far to the right. But in reality, people aren't like that. Most Americans we're pretty center view, whichever we may skew to the left or skew to the right, but we're all pretty central.
Right.
I think at the end of the day, he had a lot of really good points. The same points, unfortunately, we've been saying for a long time. Nobody, I would bet even Iran doesn't think a nuclear-armed Iran is a good idea. And it's a point that he's had to drive home over and over and over. I'm sure everybody remembers the line in the sand speech, and President Obama, of course, he drew a line in the sand and then stepped back a couple feet, drew another line in the sand, stepped back another feet, drew another line in the sand. I just gave up on drawing lines in the sand.
Well, you get sand in your shoes. It's just not a good thing.
Yeah. But it's unfortunate that Netanyahu has to come back here and say the same thing over and over and over. And most of the public seems to support him. It's just one person that doesn't seem to really follow him, and it just so happens to be our commander-in-chief.
Yeah. Well, what struck me is a couple of things. One, it's a slight conflict between, is he showing disrespect for the president for even showing up?
Well, and they try to politicize that quite a bit, and that's why he was saying that he wasn't going to go to certain events because he didn't want it to be seen as a political thing. But he can't step foot on American shores and not have it be a political thing.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like, well, which way are you going to try and skew this politically? So it's just no matter what he's doing, it's political. And there are certain people out there that are going to see it as kind of an offense to the president, but at the end of the day, again, this is multiple times he's had to come back and say the same thing, and the president isn't really doing anything about it. So I think the time for pleasantries is gone.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And I think Israel has so much to lose that, of course, they're going to be passionate about it. They're on the front line.
It really does make me wonder, because I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I just, there was a lot being said about how Obama was kind of the first president in a while with, in the U.S.'s history, did not really firmly stand with Israel.
Right.
And so every time I meet a Jewish Democrat that voted for Obama, I go, what? Really?
Yeah, what were you thinking?
What were you thinking? Because he does almost seem anti-Israel in some respects, where I think he would rather collude with some of their enemies in the terms of greater global foreign policy. But typically America and Israel have stood shoulder to shoulder on almost every issue.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that we're kind of separating from that.
Yeah, and then there's the deal. And I'm like, well, okay, let's talk about that for a second, because there's the centrifuges, okay? And people don't understand you have to spin uranium to make it enriched, and then you can build bombs out of it. Right. And it's the startup time that, from the time, if we're going to give them uranium, we're going to give them the ability to have industrialized nuclear power. What's the startup time between that and a bomb?
Yeah, well, and he called that the breakout time, right? The amount of time that it actually can become a bomb. And that's the other issue that he was saying. He was saying if Iran, in fact, doesn't have any operational nuclear secure sites that we don't know about, it'll be the first time in 20 years.
Right.
Because they've always operated things that they never reported to the Atomic Agency. They've always run stuff shady, kind of under the radar. There's a reason they're hiding things. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where you can call me an idiot, but don't call me a liar. Where we know they're hiding things. We know they're up to something. We know their intents and purposes, where their politicians have come out multiple times talking about just ultimate Armageddon, death and destruction to Israel. We know they don't want to build this just for their own energy purposes. We know there's a nefarious end to these means.
Right. And I don't think anybody honestly can expect anything differently, but okay, fine. So if they open it up to significant regulation, which they never have before, and they're not going to build a bomb for 10 years, that still doesn't seem like it's a great deal. What am I missing here?
No, it's not, and it doesn't either. But in the past, America has just kind of staunchly supported Israel, and for the first time in our history, we're kind of sidestepping a lot of these issues, and I think that may be some issue. And again, there's got to be a lot of bargaining going on that us, as just everyday Americans, don't get to be a part of and don't get to see what's going on. There has to be something else on the table here that we're just not seeing. And again, that's one of my greater fears is if you look at the world as a whole, I'm wondering if it's not just Iran, but if Russia is playing a big part of this, if North Korea, if a lot of these people that are becoming allies and forming their own alliances, if this part that we only see is what's going on right now with Iran and Israel and centrifuges, right. But if in these actual closed-door sessions, there's a lot more players involved and a lot more strategic things going on than we really know about.
Oh, great. We'll be able to sleep well tonight. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate that
Hey, I got to be able to bring a damper on your Friday.
Yeah, great. So World War III. So Doug's right. World War III is just around the corner. Great.
Well, that's, somebody, I was on a show last week, and somebody wanted me to pin down exactly when I thought it was going to happen. And as an investment advisor, I know the stock market's cyclical. Every 7 to 11 years it crashes. So we're within our window, right? The last crash, 2008. I kind of predict that when the next market crash comes and our economy kind of does what it always does, I think that's when it's going to come.
Great. All right. Well, gee, Robert, thanks for the wonderful news. Can you hang on till after the break? Maybe we'll find something nice to talk about.
It's a sunshiny day. I'll be right here.
We'll talk puppies or something. All right, you're listening to the cheerful Gazette Radio Hour with John and Hans on AM-1220 KHTS, Santa Clara's hometown station. We'll be right back with our special guest, Robert Patrick Lewis.